The same goes for China. Who has not heard of China? Great China. We forget that a couple of years ago, China was a nobody. What has China done? If you look through that list that I showed you earlier, China has been able to harness all of its capacities in those areas. They do furnishing, they do publications, they do every single thing on that list. If you want to build your house today, everybody goes to China to buy all of the things they use in their houses. If you want to do audio visuals, you go to China. If you want to buy toys, you go to China. If you want to do mat weaving, you go to China. China has reinvented itself through the use of its human resource, not through the use of oil. And the same goes to Taiwan. As a matter of fact, towards the end of this presentation, I'll tell you about Taiwan. Taiwan is one of those odd, rare countries in the world that has zero natural resources. Zero. And it was a basket case a couple of years ago. Taiwan today is one of the strongest economies in the world today, from zero to glory. That is what Taiwan has been able to do through focusing on its human resource. Then who here will tell me they do not know of Silicon Valley? Silicon Valley is a place in San Francisco where people there decided to use their mental capacity to develop computer chips. Today, you carry your iPad, you carry your computer, you carry your cell phones. None of us in Nigeria cares to understand how these things were made. It is called creative energy. The creative industries is essentially what arts and culture is about. And going forward, I'm not going to call it arts and culture anymore, because we get stuck in this mode where we're thinking arts, dance, culture, atilogu. We will stop that. We will stop that, and we will focus on the creative industry. It is a creative industry that drives the world. It is not natural resources that drive the world. The greatest strength of a nation are its people. And the greatest strength of a person is that thing that lies in your head and in your hands. For as long as we do not understand that if we do not build these abilities within us, we will not grow as a nation, we are in trouble. Because having inept leaders is another problem. But having citizens themselves who are incapable of thinking out of the box is another problem. So maybe for today, we'll ignore our leaders and focus more on ourselves and ask ourselves, what am I doing with the creative energy God has given me? What am I doing with the capacity that is inbuilt within me? Am I maximizing myself to the best of my abilities? Then we will face government towards the end of this presentation. Are we comfortable with that? Great. Okay. Now, let's bring it down to Nigeria. If we're talking India, we're talking, what do you call it, Taiwan and all these other places. What is the reality on ground in Nigeria? This is where you'll see that some people, in spite of what is going on in our country, have been able to harness their creative energies to produce things out of nothing. Nollywood. Nollywood is a typical example of an industry that has grown from nothing to something. Ask Nollywood 20 years ago, did government even recognize them? Did anybody acknowledge them? As a matter of fact, most of us sniggered. And were like, no, poor quality. Guess what? Today, Nollywood is the second largest producer of movies in the world. Forget the quality for a second, but it has achieved something. Am I right? These are our own people. They're not government, they're our people. We need to celebrate our own people who are doing extraordinary work. Nollywood today employs around about 1 million people, apart from the ancillary numbers that obviously attach on to all their movie productions. It is estimated that the arts, entertainment, and recreation sector in Nigeria contributed about 1.5% to its economy in 2013. Bear in mind that it was in 2013 that for the first time they took into consideration the contribution of the arts and entertainment sector. Prior to then, nobody even cared about them. They didn't even notice them. But through the tenacity and hard work of private citizens like yourself and myself, borrowing money, friends, family, and foe, everybody gave them money to do these movies that were done in less than a week. Most times, $10,000 maximum, whereas in America you have movies that are being, you spend millions of dollars, right? But they have created jobs, they have created entertainment for us, they reflect who we are as a society to us, and more importantly, they have become our cultural ambassadors worldwide. They single-handedly sell Nigeria more than most of our ministers and our leaders do. When there is an election, I have heard that in certain African countries, they will call our actors and say, please come help me mobilize people. That is the power of Nollywood. That is star power. That is people who have been able to generate mileage from what they have inside of them. Recently, I got involved in Nollywood business. We're doing a movie on the true story of the Ebola crisis in Nigeria. And I'm producing this with two other friends, Steve Gukas and Dr. Lakuri. When, in the course of doing this movie, we brought in Danny Glover. He's acting in this movie. Now, Danny Glover's presence alone was able to create so much mileage for the movie, and we got access to government corridors of power. Ashiwaju Tinubu received us, Governor Ambode received us. Why? Because America has placed a premium on its human capacities. That is all that it is. There is mileage in human beings now coming from there, and then all of a sudden Nigeria wants to make them brand ambassadors. How about making our own people your brand ambassadors so that we can celebrate ourselves? And even if we don't, other African countries are doing it for us. It doesn't really matter. I traveled to a country that is really far and out, Turks and Caicos, last summer. It's in the Caribbean. When I got there, nobody knew anything about Nigeria other than that. Nollywood. You know Rita Dominic? You know the other one. Anyways, you know them. I'm like, right, yeah, I'm also an actress, you know that? They said, yeah, let's take a picture with you. Because obviously, it was cool to be an actress all of a sudden, right? So I said I was an actress. Anyhow, so this is what it is. So, unfortunately, like everything else, the industry is bedeviled with so many problems. Training, like we said earlier on, we don't have the right schools to train the practitioners in this industry. The industry is underfunded, and they're bedeviled by piracy. Piracy is a problem. So the owners of these creative works don't get to enjoy the fruits of their labor. And that also dictates why the quality of the movies are so poor. Because when an actor invests 200 million, 100, let's assume they did that much, 100 million in a movie, and before you even release it, it's already pirated on the streets. They ask themselves the question, why bother? Let me spend 10 million naira. After all, I'll make my 10 million naira back by this time I show it to friends and family in my living room. So that also affects the rationale behind the quality of the movies that we're producing. In addition to that, infrastructure. There are no cinemas. I think at the last count we had less than 20 cinemas in Lagos, or even Nigeria at that. The mileage you get from movies and the money you make from movies in America is a game of numbers. If you don't have enough cinemas, you can't make your money back. In America, they have millions or hundreds and thousands of cinemas. In Nigeria, we have next to nothing. So how do you expect somebody to spend $1 million or $2 million making a movie knowing that he's not capable of showing it to the general public? That is a reality that we face. And these are some of the areas that if we're going to be talking seriously, we need government to focus on and assist. Now, as a comparative analysis, if you look at Hollywood in the year 2014, Hollywood single-handedly generated $31.8 billion to America's economy. $31.8 billion. Imagine what would happen if Nigeria focused on building more cinemas, focused on building more schools for filmmaking, and focused on marketing our goods without piracy affecting us. This is the strength of arts and culture, Nollywood, as a case study.